Mercury. Estowick's Last Word. Part 1 of 2. Plans and Passageways. "This is our first stop," states the lilac-haired Nadrig, ready to depart from the boat, while the rest of the crew looks at her solemnly, wondering what she is doing. "Mom, this isn't a far, you do realise, don't you?" questioned Charles, private to Nadrig. "Of course I do. If I didn't know what I was doing, would I still be here?" she states as the rest of her shipmates look at her nervously, eyes shifting from place to place every few seconds. "We get off here, continue over to Afar. John, I'll leave you in charge for now. Charles, follow me." She lit a match and inflamed the casket made of either Death Song amber or glass as an oil lamp. Minutes passed, and the ship was gone and out of sight, while our little dragon-hunting friends headed northeast of this rock in the middle of the ocean. "If you don't mind me asking, Mom, where in the name of the Black Death beneath us are we going?" "Where are we going? That, my dear friend, is for me to know and you to not know, okay?" she snapped. He nodded. Charles, too, remembers the attack in this instant of crossing terrain which looks like it's been trampled on by a dozen catastrophic Quakens. He was on the bow of the boat. He saw that they were approaching the east side of Afar. He closed his eyes and breathed in the pungent kick of smell that was salt water. Then the beautiful smell of raw fish from a fishmonger's reached his nostrils, and he smiled. Despite the absence of Charles's nose, he could still smell like a red death of Grunkle. He swerved around, his coat blowing into his trousers in the harsh gale, and witnessed the masterpiece. A dark green chain attached to the ship, which was interconnected with 6 other surrounding ships, 3 to the left and 3 to the right. However, all 7 of these chains reached down into the dark, breathless soul of the sea. "It's all right, girl. We'll be there soon. Then you can come out for a while." He softly spoke to the wake of the vessel standing beneath the torn flag with 2 blood-red daggers facing downwards. His ship was one of the legendary sisters of the Reaper. "Class, watch your step, that's it. Now we've all got something warm on, because the wind that comes out of these tunnels can often cause harsh frostbite and has been known to kill," warned Professor Zelthovet. "Yep, that's my Aunt Trudy in here, you know," shouted Cressida from the back of the crowd. "Of course. Poor old Aunt Trudy," the teacher said with a smile, recognizing the inside joke between the 2 of them. "Interesting fact, class. These pieces of pottery have been here since before I left Ice Storm, or Afar, as it was called and I still call it," explained Estowick, still walking through the sharp cold. "What do you mean by before you left Ice Storm, sir?" asked Jane. "Don't you know? This guy was a hero," explained history fanatic Susan Tupp, who was obsessed with the history of people she knew. He was the one who stopped the dragon hunters by closing up the secret passage in the mouth of the Gronksicle statue in the village which nobody knows about on the day of the attack." The entire class stared in amazement. "Shouldn't have said that. Sorry," realizing a mistake. "It's okay, Sue. They're going to find out. But what was that about a passageway? I've never heard about that," comforted Cressida. "I was in the library, the one in the middle of the ocean, the original. I was looking at the archives of Afar and came across a page about you. It was ripped and it started like, 'Stoically enthusiastic, the thought of Afar leapt into the mouth of the limestone beast to close the secret passageway which leads to the BOA, heroically.' Then it ended." "Care to explain, sir?" came a harsh voice of Este's spouse. Estowick just stared forward, as if he'd been fired by a flightmare. "Come on." Estowick still stared into the abyss and sat down on a nearby rock. "Everybody take a seat," he finally blurted out. "It was the day of the attack. My mother had told me she was going to die. and I went to look on the horizon for the enemy. There were 7 ships, all connected by a dark green chain which sloped into the ocean. They were carrying something big. Hours passed and everyone was either hiding, had fled to our other islands, or were dead. I knew what I had to do. My responsibility was to lock the gold door that we all know. I entered the treasure room and I saw the button. What I thought was the button. I pushed it and the pedestal with the lens disappeared and another one came up. I brought the lens up to the light, looked through it, and I saw what else I thought I better do. I did what the diagram showed and the mouth of the Gronksicle opened. I climbed through and it led deeper and deeper into the island. I read everything written on the walls. I learned so much about my own island. Then I reached rock bottom. There it was, in all its sheer beauty, a room which I can't remember much of except for the fact that it was beautiful. Plants and flowers draped across the walls with a golden pedestal centerpiece, and on that an object. Then I went closer to the main attraction, the bottom of the lake and all of its secrets. Come along, biggest day of the year today. We have to get busy. We have the final food supplies coming in before winter. Today has to run as smoothly as possible, or else we will all starve, yelled the temporary Burke Docks manager. Reduced to this, eh? We save the entire dragon race, and this is the gratitude we get. Great, isn't it, Archibald? You know, I'd have a heart attack if you answered me. It's a lonely life, Simon Speaker told himself and his scuttlecore Archibald at Burke Docks. The trade ships will arrive in 3 hours. Be ready. Simon only did this job once per year because he didn't trust anyone else at all. He was a teacher of history at the School of Dragons, and he was one of the best ones there was. He'd had some adventures in the past, but not any that were very published, though our good friend Estowick knew about them. Something to do with a disease that could wipe out all the dragons. Just a normal Thursday afternoon. The sun beat down upon their foreheads so they all think of how ironic it was that they were stocking up for winter in this blistering heat. Quickly, if the paths aren't clear, then the food will get eaten by the dragons or fish legs or bulls on their way to the village. If we don't get just one of those ships, not everyone will eat at Snoggletog. Just one ship. One. Hey, Si, why the stress? We can always go fishing for more, came the naive George from around the corner. Because it's not just food, George. Thought you got it into your mind that there is more to life than food, he replied with a smirk. What do you mean it's not just food? Quickly, Charles. There's only 2.5 hours before the ships arrive, and we have to get to Burke Docks with the Mercury. Nadrig moaned as they struggled across the open plains of somewhere. It may help, Ma'am, if I knew exactly where we were headed. Couldn't we just stay on the ship? Queried the private. If you must know, we are at Dragon's Edge. I needed to get something, she stated cold and hard. Dragon's Edge? But that was... He was cut off. I knew. But what else do you do with an abandoned island than to hide stuff on it? She chuckled for the first time in front of Charles, which then consequently smiled. What is she after? Charles thought to himself. What else could we possibly need? Then, as they diverted past a large boulder, Charles saw it, parked in a small cove where it looked as if it were washed up, which it was. How did you get it here? He exclaimed in excitement. I didn't. It just ended up here, and as I was walking past one day, there it was. Then the plan fell into place. Come on, let's go and get it up and running, she ordered. What? How? We need a dragon. A big dragon, too, he pointed out. Well, that's not the only thing I kept here for safekeeping. Ever since the home of the Dragon Riders was destroyed, this place has been a wasteland for looters to keep their loot. It's such a vast place. There are thousands of hiding places, but around the same time as this, I had taken over the Platinum Bullet's base, and in its lagoon I found an egg, waiting to hatch.
Once it did, I let it grow. Then we took his base back, and I took the adolescent with me, and left it here, chained up. Then when this thing came along, it was like a miracle. She talked him through it. It was a miracle. They both chuckled as they got to work. But how could you? Threw Cressida. You know my lust for knowledge of the flora of that lake, Esty, and you're telling me that there's a way to view it without using one of Hiccup's death sentence guaranteed inventions. Why didn't you tell me? Mostly because I forgot. A lot of what happened to me that day was and still is a blur. I can't remember much, but every now and then it comes back to me. I never think of it, so I never remember. He slowly proceeded to bounce back. Although this may seem to have calmed things down, the argument continued for several minutes. Will you two shut up? Yelled a voice from the crowd. Thank you. As the voice's owner came through the students, eyesight was caught. Egg? queried Cressida. Cress! The two embraced in a hug. Hiya, mate. We thought you were supposed to be on a business trip, came Estowick. I was,